Guys, welcome back to the Primal Shift podcast. In this episode, I'll share with you the 6 things that I learned about nutrition and fitness in 2023. And when I say learned, I don't necessarily mean that it was something that's completely new that I never even heard about before, but it's something that maybe I knew before, I kind of knew before, but that really settled in for me to the extent where I'm like, I gotta do something about it. And kind of it's like the difference between, I know that alcohol isn't good for me and I know that alcohol isn't good for me and that's why I'm not drinking anymore. Kind of thing, if you get the drift. So let's jump right into those 6 things that I learned in this year about nutrition and fitness. Number 1, mobility and range of motion are key if I want to age gracefully and be able to move without pain. Here is the thing. I'm, I think, the fittest and strongest that I've ever been in my entire life. I'm turning 42 and I used to be a professional athlete. Most of you know that. And I always, most of my life, I was in pretty good shape, but I'm in the best shape of my life right now. I'm the strongest. My metabolic and cardiovascular capacity are just beyond everything I've ever had, but my range of motion and my mobility have significantly suffered over the years because I've been ignoring it. And so thanks to a buddy of mine actually, shout out to Brian, who kept pushing and said, hey, we need to work on mobility. We need to work on our range of motion. And we finally started doing this. And it's been an absolute, not a game changer yet. It's been an eye opener to see how bad and how poor my mobility really is. And I've been noticing it with, getting up, getting out of bed in the morning or getting up from the floor or, back in the days, I would be more like a cat. I can jump out and, jump out of bed, jump off the floor and just be super smooth and I guess agile in my movements. And now I'm feeling more like I'm more robotic to a degree because all of the, those empty spaces in my joints and wherever there wasn't muscle tissue before has filled out with muscle tissue, with tissue in general. And so that made me stronger and more robust, I guess, more compact, gave me a sturdier frame, if you will, but it has significantly impaired how smoothly I can move. And so that's been one of the things that I will be focusing on over the next couple of months and really for the rest of my life, to not only do my resistance training, my heavy lifting, my high intensity stuff, my walking and all of the things that I do, but to also work every day on mobility and range of motion so I can continue moving pain-free and don't look like a robot. I don't want to be one of those guys, 60 years old and still look super buff, but I can't really, turn my head around anymore. So that's one thing that I discovered that I really need to work on. Number 2 is something that we have been working on, but it really settled in this year, and that is to taking control of your own food supply is absolutely critical. It's become so difficult to source high quality food, even from well-meaning brands. There is usually always something I'm like, if I had the opportunity or if I was in charge, I would do this differently. And I've noticed this across the board. And the problem with that is that, every day the foods that we eat contribute to deteriorating health, even if we are trying, and that's very difficult, to make the best food choices we can. Even if budget is not an issue, if money is not an object, it's still incredibly difficult, in particular in this country, but in other Western countries as well, I would argue, making or finding food that doesn't have any issues whatsoever. And we talked about this just a few episodes ago, when I had Dr. Anthony Guston on the podcast. Even pastured chicken or pastured pork, not really something that you want to eat, in greater quantities. And so taking control of your own food supply is critical. And that means, raising your own, at least some of your own food. Ideally, and that's the goal for us, as part of our Kummer Homestead initiative, to raise most, if not all of the foods we consume, especially our proteins and especially everything that delivers micronutrients. Now, are there certain things that, that might provide energy that we don't need to grow ourselves, exotic fruits, what have you, sure. But the core of our food, the protein, the micronutrients, I want to have full control over. And, I know that not everyone wants to be a farmer or can be a farmer or lives in an environment where farming and homesteading is possible. But there are a couple of things like, I just talked about it with Kathy and her mom this morning at the breakfast table. Raising rabbits for meat is incredibly easy. They don't make a noise. They don't smell if you raise them in an environment that's conducive to optimal hygiene. And they're easy to butcher. They're They taste great. They kind of taste like chicken, but it's red meat. So they're not ruminants, but they are herbivores, and so their fatty acid composition is significantly better than anything you would find in poultry. And again, they are so easy to raise. All it takes is some hay and maybe pellets and maybe some fresh greens that you might have or not, and that's it. Very low requirements, very high output. I mean, they breed like rabbits. We have 2 does and 1 buck, and we get about 14 rabbits every 45 days. And so if you only have 1 buck and 1 doe, I mean, you can get somewhere between 5 to 10 rabbits every 45 days with very little input, and with best quality meat you'll find anywhere. And so I highly recommend for anyone to figure out what it is that they can take control over. And if it's raising a tomato plant or whatever it is, do something to raise your own food. It's enjoyable. You learn a lot. You appreciate the food much more because you know what it took to make it happen, to put it on your plate or into your fridge or freezer, and it's incredibly rewarding, and it's absolutely healthy and so much better than anything you can buy in the store. Number 3, protein and micronutrients are king as far as overall nutrition is concerned. If you center every single meal around proteins and foods that are high or very dense in micronutrients, organs obviously would be an example, but it doesn't even have to be like that. Eggs, responsibly raised eggs. If you make those the center of every single meal, you're not going to have a whole lot of issues. It doesn't really matter then at the end of the day if your energy is coming from fat, if you're more in a low carb, ketogenic diet or carnivore diet maybe, or if it's coming from carbohydrates, from seasonal fruits, from honey, from maple syrup, from dairy maybe, doesn't really matter. But if protein and micronutrients make up the core of your meal, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to overeat and gain weight and to get sick or unhealthy from your meals. In fact, I overeat every single time, every single day with every single meal. I'm not one of those persons that, I'm going to stop before I'm full. I eat until I can't eat anymore and I don't gain weight. My body fat is at a historic low of 8%. I'm in great metabolic shape. My fitness level is absolutely through the roof, and I overeat every single day, and I like to eat, but I like to eat the right types of food. And I think if you make it high quality protein, ideally from animal-based sources, and focus on your micronutrient intake, it's incredibly difficult to overeat and get fat. Yeah, you can overeat, but if you do that, then my body, maybe the next meal I'm hungry an hour or 2 hours later the next day, so it kind of, if you just listen to your body, it'll figure itself out. There is no rocket science, there is no planning, there is no writing down my calories or my, I don't, track anything. I just eat until I can't eat anymore, and then a couple of hours later, I do it again twice a day, and I've been doing this for many weeks and months. And I don't see negative impact on my body. If I'm getting fat, I'm not seeing it, And so that's also one thing that's, I think, much more important than figuring out, do I want to do low carb or high carb or anything in between? Focus on proteins, focus on micronutrients. That's one of the things that I've learned and I've really experienced this year and paid more attention to by just, reflecting of how I eat and how much I eat. Number 4, the water supply in our country is absolutely terrible. And obviously tap water is absolutely horrendous from a quality perspective. But even if you try to do the right things, and I'm not talking about plastic water and plastic bottles and all of those things. I mean, obviously those are all terrible. But even if you want to do the right thing and filter your water, let's say you use an RO system, even if you then have an RO system with a remineralization capability that puts some of the minerals back into the water, because RO water is void of anything. You don't want to drink RO water because it's dehydrating you more than it helps. Because it leaches minerals from either your tissue, from your gut, or from the food you eat, and you pee them out. So that's not a good thing. But even if you want to do everything right and you buy the best water filtration system there is, the difference between that water and high quality spring water, that has not been treated and processed in any way is like night and day. I mean, just the other day, yesterday actually, I opened a bottle of Sal Pellegrino, and I'm, not pitching any particular brand. I don't know if there might be issues associated with that particular type of water, but just looking at the total dissolved contents or solids in that water, the minerals and trace minerals and everything that's in there, and compare it with our remineralized RO water or with our regular, water that's filtered through a whole house filtration system without, not RO, just regular, sediment-based filtration. It's night and day. I mean, there is, the TDS count, the total dissolved solids in our RO water is maybe around 20 after remineralization, or 24. It's about 50 to 60 in our just regular tap water that was filtered, it doesn't have any chlorine or anything, and it's between 300 and 400 in a high quality European spring water. That tells you how many more minerals and trace minerals and other compounds that are naturally part of the water are in that water in comparison to what we drink every day. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to go out and only buy, expensive glass bottled water, but it goes to show that there is a significant difference, and maybe that's why, we need to supplement with or consume more salt and more magnesium supplements and all of those things to mitigate the lack of minerals in our drinking water. And if you think about it, I mean, water is one of the key components that we need not only to be healthy but to live. And having a poor supply of water is just terrible. And that's something really, to carefully think about and to see how you can mitigate that. Obviously, increasing your salt intake, taking magnesium supplements, all of the things that we do out of necessity, they're okay. But I'd rather just get water that has everything, we need. And so I don't have to supplement. But it's incredibly difficult in this country. And that's, number 4 that I knew kind of, but that really sunk in this year for me. Number 5, and that's one that makes me angry at times, because it's such a blatant, obvious thing that it's just so obvious in your face, but many people still don't understand what's going on. And that is, there is a lot of money in this country to be made with sick people. Large parts of our economy rely on people being sick. There is no money to be made, or very little in comparison with dead people. I mean, yes, the burial industry and everything, but it's, nothing in comparison to the gazillions of dollars that are made with, people being sick. And there is also not a whole lot of money to be made with incredibly healthy people, but there is just so much money to be made if you're sick, especially if you're chronically sick. The whole junk food industry is obviously, or the processed food industry is feeding into that, is helping, keeping people sick. The pharmaceutical industry is then, offering a quick fix that's not really solving anything, but just prevents you from dying, and, you continue on being sick. And then the entire healthcare system that treats sick people instead of, it's not really healthcare, it's sick care. We are treating sick people, making sure they are not too sick, so they're not going to die, but just sick enough so they keep coming back. And if you realize that, then you start questioning everything, because everything you hear in the news from, medical authorities, from the government, from your primary care physician, I always ask myself the question when I hear something: who benefits from doing what they're doing and from doing what they're saying? And you'll quickly realize, if you follow the money trail, that it's all advice. It's all advice that's meant to keep you from getting healthy. It's meant to keep you sick so that those entities can continue making money. And, once you've realized that, you really start questioning everything, and you almost become like, oh, now I'm one of those, conspiracy theorists or whatever, or, I need a tinfoil hat. But it's unfortunately very true. There is not a whole lot of information out there that's honestly meant to make people healthy and keep them that way. No, it's all about, here is a quick fix, but continue eating those chips, and then, we have another medication for you if your blood pressure gets too high, and, and it's just a whole mess. But the good news is, you can easily break out of that, But first advice is, not to listen to anything you hear, Think for yourself for a moment, and then start thinking, okay, who benefits from, that advice, that piece of advice? And usually you come to the conclusion that, well, there is money involved, so I'm probably going to do the opposite, and you're much better off. Number 6, And that is the last one. That's, to end on a good note, because a lot of the points were really, not very positive and makes you think. But I mean, the good news is to all of that, there is a solution, Lack of mobility and range of motion, well, work on your mobility and range of motion, not a problem. Taking control of your own food supply, anyone can do that in varying, degrees. Maybe you just, plant a tomato plant. Maybe, you can raise rabbits. Maybe you have a couple of chickens, to the limit that your HOA might allow. Maybe you finally purchase, a piece of land like we did, so we can raise, dairy cows and beef cattle and pigs and all of that. Make sure that your meals are focused around or centered around, high quality proteins and micronutrients. And so all of that, most of that you can solve. That's the good news. There is, I always try to ask myself the question, how can I, fix whatever the problem might be? And there is always a solution. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it takes money and commitment, but you can do that. And to end it on a good note, my number 6 that I discovered this year is that, fortunately, most of what I've been doing in terms of improving my fitness, improving my nutrition, improving my health and wellness overall has been working. And I absolutely love it. Now, if you ask me, sometimes people come up to me and say, hey, so what is it exactly? Tell me exactly what you do to perform, in the gym like you do. And unfortunately, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But I know that the summary of all those puzzle pieces that, are my life or our life and, as part of the Kummer family, come together and lead to the results that I've been seeing. And so I really liked it. So I know that, I might not do everything right. There are many things that I know that I don't do right and that I can fix and that I will fix and that I have fixed. But everything together, there appears to be a net positive. I'm getting healthier, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting fitter. I sleep much better and much longer than I have in the past. And there, it's all about the little things that I try to improve every single day. Like not stressing about, first thing in the morning I need to write for the blog. I need to record. I need to, need to, where the truth is I don't need to do anything. The only thing I need to do is get up and be happy, and then we'll figure out what I can do. And so by really redirecting, priorities, by re-evaluating priorities and shifting stuff around and really focusing on, on what I'm doing right now and enjoying it as much as I possibly can, by doing that, it has led to a lot of improvements in various areas: sleep, nutrition, fitness, exercise, etc. So I'm grateful for that. I'm happy for that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop here and call it a day and just keep with what has been working so far. Obviously, I will continue reevaluate what I'm doing and see how I can further optimize it and share it with you, so you can hopefully pick up some of that and apply it to your own life and see the benefits. But that's overall the 6 things that I've learned, rediscovered in some cases, and really internalized in others this year. And I'm not gonna wait until next year to address some of those if I haven't already. I'm gonna do it right away. That's one of the things. I don't make New Year's resolutions. I don't wait for next year. Whatever I can do to improve something, I'll do it right away. With that, we're gonna wrap this episode up, and I hope I will hear and see you in the next one.